Hello and welcome back to the Matchbook World Cup podcast. It's the final group games coming up. It's hard to believe we're almost there. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, joined as always by Adrian, Clarke, Mark O'Hare, Miguel, Delaney. We're under strict orders to get straight into the action here to get the guys out nice and early. So before we get into it, I'll just point you in the direction of our new sign-up offer that's been going throughout the World Cup and will be lasting until the final stages as well. So it's linked into the guys' podcast bets as well. So for those listeners that regular listeners to the podcast would like to maybe get involved with an exchange account or a matchbook account and they've tried other exchanges, this is a brilliant offer and cash offer. It's double the odds on podcast best bets up to £50 in cash. That's double the odds in podcast best bets up to £50. All you have to do is enter the bonus code when signing up. It's right there, a little field when you register. Enter the bonus code podcast. That's enter the bonus code podcast. 18 plus, terms and conditions apply, and be gamble aware. So we'll stay tuned for the podcast best bets when the guys come to it, but we'll get straight into it. And we start with the couple of games in Group A. It's Ecuador versus Senegal, or Group B, sorry, and take a look at the betting as we have it at matchbook.com. You can back Ecuador at 2.52, Senegal at 3.3, the draw available at 9-4 or 3.25. Both teams to score, yes, it's 2.14. No, 1.84. The Asian handicap line sees Senegal get a quarter of a goal head start at 1.86, and the goal line is 2.0. So, Mark, you're sitting this one out. Miguel, we'll hand over to you live from Qatar. You're expecting goals in this game for the final one.
Yeah. You could actually get some indication of this from the Serbia-Cameroon game we've just seen, where I think now that the first round of games are pretty, some of them were low scoring, I think, because of the element of teams finding their feet and kind of want to consolidate after just arriving with so little build-up time. But now teams actually have something to do with what they do then, forcing responses. And I think it's where this tournament is going to really open up now. And there's no clear indication. By my count right now, it's one of 10 games, Ecuador, Senegal, with something going into the final group games with something really on the line, or a direct playoff between the teams. And I think that's going to see some proper back and forths. Both have actually been involved in relatively open games, even allowing for Ecuador's previous defensive record going into this World Cup. But to be honest with this one, it's one of those where it's kind of not quite all bets are off, given what we're talking about. But one of those where this genuinely could go either way and could be a really high scoring game. So I think the safest is essentially both teams to score. And I'm very confident in that.
Well, and you look at some of the both teams to score prices you get in the Premier League. You're getting 2.1 here, Miguel. So I'm definitely intrigued by that.
That must be influenced by the early games as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely feel a bit of juice in that price, perhaps given game state as well, and the game's kicking off at the same time too. Adrian, you're going to go for a side here. I'm taking it you're being a big impressed with Ecuador, particularly their last game in Netherlands. I thought they were by far the better team.
Ecuador than Senegal, I've got to say. I think that they were the better side against the Netherlands. I mean, they limited them to 2 shots. That's pretty good going, isn't it? We saw with Qatar as well. They barely got inside their box in the game. I don't have the stat to hand, but it was very low, wasn't it, in terms of touches inside the Ecuador box. So even though it feels like Ecuador have been involved in open games, they've actually suffocated the opponent pretty well. They've not given up too many chances. We know about their strong defensive record. So I'm sort of coming at it slightly differently. I definitely can see Miguel's point on it, but they have an amazing defensive record, Ecuador, and they only need a draw. And am I convinced by Senegal? No, not really. I think that up front, okay, they scored 3 against Qatar, but I'm not sure about the quality in forward areas. It's not as good as maybe I expected it to be. They're a little bit wild with their tactics at times as well. I just feel that Ecuador are a better unit than Senegal, and Senegal got to go for it. They've got to win the game to stand any chance of progressing, and that might give Ecuador chances to pick them off. So yeah, I'm confident. I'm confident that the South American team can at least get the point that they need to progress to the next stage. So yeah, that's my pick. I'm playing it safe. I was tempted to just back them at 2.54, but I think knowing that they need a draw, and if they get to the last 15 minutes and they're level, I think they wouldn't go for the winner necessarily. So for me, draw no bet is where I was heading. It's not the biggest price, 1.76, but I personally think it'll be an upset if they lose the game based on what I've seen.
Okay, yeah, and you do feel Ecuador are definitely the better team than Senegal. So Ecuador on the draw, no bet, as Adrian touched on, 1.76. We'll move on to the second game and we'll start with Mark, but we'll take a look at the betting as we have the match.com. So this game obviously will be kicking off Tuesday, 3 o'clock as well. It's Netherlands versus Qatar. Netherlands can be backed at 1.22. Qatar are 19.0. The draw is available at 7.6. Both teams to score no, heavily favored at 1.67. And the Asian handicap line is Qatar getting a 2-goal head start at 1.92. We'll get to that in just a sec. And the goal line is 3.0. The over can be backed at 1.86. Mark, this jumped off the page when I looked at the document this morning. You would put this up because you're known, and you've said regularly on the podcast, you don't like backing against a massive Asian handicap line, but you're going to go with the Netherlands here at -1.5 to 2.0.
Yeah, and it kind of goes against everything we've seen so far in the competition, because I think the Dutch have been one of the biggest disappointments. I wasn't as high on them as many have been. I had my doubts about them coming into the competition. And look, the caveat is they've had 2 tricky games to negotiate against Senegal and Ecuador, and they're one of the first to have to play in this competition. So they had one of the quickest turnarounds really from the domestic campaigns. And I think to have 4 points on the board is flattering to them so far. They're outshot 15-10 by Senegal. Adrian mentioned the game against Ecuador, outshot 15-2 in that game. They've only had 6 shots from inside the penalty area across their first 2 games. They've conceded 18. They've generated 0.77 XG. They've conceded 2.57. Really, really rotten numbers. And Louis van Gaal cannot be pleased with what he's seen so far. I think defensively they've looked fragile. Midfield has looked pretty mishmash and sort of plodding along without too much inspiration. And they've really missed Memphis. So I'm hopeful that he comes back into the team, because I do think he can give them a massive lift in forward areas. But, their task is pretty straightforward. If they want to win the group, they need to win this match and win it with room to spare. And if Qatar are being beaten by Senegal and Ecuador by at least 2 goals, there's no reason to suggest that the Netherlands can't do that. They played better, Qatar did, against Senegal in the second match. They still conceded 3 goals, and they still look like they could concede more. They're better in possession, but they were outpowered, outmaneuvered, outthought, I thought, as well. There's a big gulf in quality here. And I'm just backing on the Netherlands to sort of show their teeth, really. They've had 2 games to loosen up and get ready for this. Now it's not quite do or die at all, but I expect them to come to the party. And if Memphis is playing, I'll be pretty confident that they can cover that goal line. As I say, if Senegal and Ecuador can beat them by 2 goals, we just need the Dutch to repeat that to get a half stakes win. If they win by more than that, we get a full stakes win. So, I was quite happy to take that handicap price at 176.
Yeah, and Miguel, you're in similar sort of lines here. You're going to pair Netherlands to win the game, and maybe an overs angle to perhaps if Qatar do get a goal at the other end.
Yeah, I wouldn't be going kind of over the top on Netherlands. Because the temptation, given the kind of the status of the 2 sides and how bad Qatar have been, is to think Netherlands will just cut loose. But they're not really quite like that, especially when it's a Van Gaal team. So I can kind of, nearly get into this below, but or later on. But I'd almost be thinking kind of a 3-0 Netherlands. So hence I've kept it quite tight on that. But I think it'll just be a comfortable but fairly controlled Van Gaal win.
Yeah, absolutely. So the couple of plays there, Netherlands over 2.5 goals, 1.72 for Miguel, and Mark's going with Netherlands -1.5 to 2.0, so 1 3/4 goal at 1.78. That's Group A done. We'll move on to Group B, and we'll take a look at the betting. A couple of interesting ties ahead in this group. It's Iran versus USA, the big one. Let's take a look at the betting as we have it on matchbook.com. Iran 3-1 or 4.0 on the Matchbook betting exchange. The US can be back to 2.12. And the draw is available at 3.55. Both teams to score. Again, Noah's favourite in the market at 1.87. The Asian handicap line sees Iran get a half a goal start at 1.89. And the total is 2.25 goals, shaded a good bit towards the under, 1.87. So yeah, Adrian, we'll go to you on this one. I think your relationship with Iran, you were on board with them game 1. You completely deserted them game 2. So I was fascinated to see you're back on the bandwagon now.
We got to get it right sooner or later. No, I was really impressed with them. I think they were distracted in the opening game. The manager did change the tactics. He left out one of his star forwards, didn't he? And they obviously did the protest. And I think it got to them. But full respect for the way that they regrouped. I wasn't sure that they could do it, but that was mighty impressive, I thought, against Wales. I think they had over 20 shots in the game. Absolutely worthy winners. And they will now feel that they've got great momentum. You saw the scenes at the end. It was really joyous, wasn't it? They believe that they can do what it takes to get past America and get into the next stage now. And I'm kind of with them on it. They have scored twice in both games. They've played Wales and England. This is not two poor teams. Wales don't give up goals that easily, really, do they? Over the test of time. So to score 4 goals already, I think is a testament to their adventure inside the final third. I just don't know about America. I just don't know. I got some stick because on another podcast I labelled them a mediocre team, and
I saw the stick.
People were coming back at me, but I kind of stand by it. If they were anything other than mediocre, they would have beaten England. That's the truth. A good team would have beaten England. I think in World Cup final standards, they're okay. America, well organised. Tactically, they were good in the game. Did a brilliant job. I thought, the manager was superb. The players hungry. Can they do it again? Can they do it again? And can they take the initiative and really get at Iran and score goals? I'm not sure. I think it's more of a 50-50 game. And I'm surprised to see Iran as such wide underdogs in the game. And for that reason, I'm delighted to get on board with Iran, the Iran win and the Iran draw by backing them on plus half a goal, and for it to be nearly even money. I'm delighted with that. I think they've got a real crack. They're more than good enough of getting at least a draw, if not winning the game.
Yeah, 1.96 does seem quite big. And Mark, look, I was buzzing for a couple of my own bets when Iran came through against Wales, but I was also buzzing for yourself because I know you went out of your way to tip up Iran early in the World Cup week before everyone else got on the bandwagon, and everyone else deserted the bandwagon, but you stuck with them against Wales. I'm delighted to see that goal come through eventually.
Well, you can look an idiot when you put up what you think is quite a big view and they go and lose 6-2 in the first game. So, it all comes down to this. Iran just need a point, basically, to qualify because Wales aren't going to beat England by 3 or 4 goals. So, it was quite a cagey first half against Wales, but second half, they really went for them and fully deserved the win, even if the goals came late. They had 21 shots in total. Most of those were from outside the area, but they hit the woodwork twice, and I can't see how anyone could say that Wales were the better team. So, I think Carlos Queiroz will absolutely love this match. Obviously, there's a political backdrop to it too, but I think he'll be fully focused on making his team just very, very difficult to beat. It's going to be a dog of a game. They're going to make life incredibly difficult for the US. And actually, I think it plays right into their hands, Iran. For 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, they've been sort of renowned for their contain and counter approach. As Adrian says, they've already scored 4 goals in this group already. We know defensively is where their strengths are at, but going forward, they're not to be sort of messed with. And, you look at the 2 teams' options in forward areas, you'd always take the Iranian options. So can they sort of hold out? I think the price is artificially short on the US just because of their need to win this match, and Iran a point is good enough or should be, hopefully. So I think that's what sort of drives down the American price. But pre-tournament we were pretty negative on the US and their sort of prospects of getting out of this group, and I was quite happy to fade them as the second favourites to qualify. I thought that price was well wrong. I thought Wales deserved to be shorter than the US, let alone Iran. So just kind of following through with pre-tournament positions, but also basically what we've seen so far, which is a good half from the Americans against Wales, a good performance against England over 90 minutes, but ultimately not enough in the final third to suggest that they're capable of bringing down Iran. So, and then you look and compare and contrast the teams from their local sort of confederations, continents so far in this competition. At the moment, CONCACAF have managed 1 win from 7. That was Costa Rica's kind of burglary, if you like, against Japan. Asia have won 4, drawn 1 and lost 6 so far. So you have to say the Asian teams have prospered a lot more than CONCACAF so far. And like Adrian, getting half a goal start close to even money on Iran to avoid defeat. I like that.
Yeah, and I really like it, given the game state you touched on, Mark, to have that half a goal and bit of insurance at just very close to even money. Miguel, very briefly on the England-Iran game, and I guess there was a lot of stuff going off the pitch with Iran and that political statement. And I guess there's no better way to explain that maybe performance in the first half other than the protests, really, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's it. But I also think it's one of those things that works both ways, where once the tournament got underway, they obviously had the result, then it had a kind of a strange rallying point then for the team, and something, and especially given the focus on them, given the way they've come together. And I have to say, I'm at England Wales, which should be a good game for work, but I'm almost kind of envious I'm not Iran USA, because I think this is going to be one of the games of the group stage. I mean, obviously there's a political history which both managers have sought to play down. I've just seen Carlos Queiroz there talking about how he's thrown bouquets to the USA, talking about they've been the best team in the group so far, which I think is maybe overstating it. I agree with Adrian. They're solid, and they did impress me against England, but they do. It does feel like lack something, and I think Iran have a bit more about them. But again, this is one. I know it's keeping it simple, but I'm almost tempted by an accumulator on all of these kind of both teams to score. But I think this is a classic with that. Even more so than the Ecuador Senegal game. I think this is just going to open, especially if Iran score first. I think, and it's going to be a frenzied match.
Yeah, and as Miguel touched on there, you can do your multiples through Matchbook, one of the few exchange that you can do that as well. So maybe a look ahead using these 8 games, pick the 4 or 5. Miguel thinks there's goals, and then we'll see how we're set Wednesday evening. So that's Iran plus half a goal on the Asian handicap line for Mark and Adrian, 1.96. Both teams to scores. Miguel again, a big price on that, 2.1. We'll move on to the game that Miguel is covering, whether he likes it or not, for the Independent. It's Wales against England. Take a look at the betting as we have it on Matchbook.com. Wales coming back to 9.0, England 1.46. The draw is available at 4.8. Both teams to score. Another favourite no at 1.84. The Asian handicap line sees Wales get a 1.25 goal head start at 1.94, and the total is in and around 2.5 goals. Miguel, we'll go to you on this one. So I see you've gone for England and under 3.5 goals. How do you see this game playing out?
I think, again, it's similar to what we're saying before about the Dutch. I think it'll just be another controlled England win. There is maybe a slight capacity for Wales to collapse late on if kind of England open them up and Wales going to see it's hopeless, because obviously Wales need a win here, and quite a big one to kind of turn this round and to knock England out. But I think they're probably getting ahead of themselves to think about that. But I just think England have too much quality. Now, Wales do feel they're one of a few teams this tournament, like Belgium, like Portugal, like Croatia, who have been, although Croatia obviously got that win, I think kind of lengthened their experience a bit against Canada. But another one of these teams that have success over the past few years, but just feels like now they're on the kind of the downward side of a cycle. England, for all the debate about the USA game, I think that these are the sort of matches that can happen in tournaments. And while they do point to concerns for later on, there's so much attack quality there, and I expect them to. I'd almost be going for kind of a 2-3-0 England win.
Okay, so, yeah, England under, yeah, that covers that well. 2.16 again seems a big price. Adrian, broad agreement, but you're looking at both teams to score, no angle. Just a very brief on England last game. What, like, trying to sum it up, like what happened there? Like,
I don't know. I think they were happy with the draw.
I
mean, Gareth, the way Gareth Southgate was talking, it was as if it's a good result. I mean, I think it was a good result. I don't think it was a good performance. Go on, Mark.
No, I just think that one thing that's probably not been picked up on is earlier in the day, Iran beating Wales changed the complexion massively in the group and actually made England not really need to win, because now they're going to the game of Wales needing to beat them by 3 or 4 not to qualify. So, yeah, he was happy with the point, and I think England played for a point towards the end because they didn't really need to go out and win the match. Doesn't really make a difference, does it?
No. Look, USA did a job on the midfield. Definitely, we talked about that being the strength of the side. And they had a good game plan. England were just incredibly flat, weren't they? It was just they devoid of any kind of inspiration. It was trademark Southgate, wasn't it? Tell me the last time when England encountered an issue or issues, were having a struggle in a game, and then Southgate recognised it really, really quickly and did something about it. I mean, I just don't remember it ever happening. Things fester for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and in this case, over an hour. And eventually got round to making a change. It didn't really work. And they were clinging on for a point. So, yes, it wasn't good. But I think this match would be different. I would look, Wales. How much belief is there in their camp that they can get the result they need? I'm not sure there is. And their weakness is 100% in midfield, Wales, and at the back with the back three. I think that England's midfield should monopolise this game, and we should be able to get those wide forwards and attacking midfielders, and maybe Harry Kane in behind that back three. on numerous occasions. So yeah, I'm confident. I did look at the under 3.5, but just in case, Wales did collapse, as Miguel hinted at. I'd go for BTTS now, e.g. England keeping a clean sheet, slightly bigger price. They just haven't been that potent, have they? Kiefer Moore probably looks about their only real threat. Gareth Bale's been anonymous, and the other forward players haven't really come to the party. So, yeah, I think England should win this 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, or 4-0. That's how I see it.
Yeah, Mark, over to you, and that'll pick it up from there.
And not too much to add, really. I think it was quite telling, really, that Southgate was outmaneuvered, outdone tactically by Greg Berhalter, who is not exactly renowned for his own tactical acumen, really. And the US switched systems, changed their formation, shut England down, and he didn't really have an answer for it. And absolute shocker of a game to watch. But England kind of fortunate, really, to get a point in the end. The US hit the woodwork and were the more threatening. So. As I say, I think the big bonus really was around beating Wales, because it gives them, or did put them in a very strong position, still does really, despite not beating the US. And then, Wales, I mean, they put in, out of the 4 halves that they've played, 3 of them have been absolutely dire. So quite difficult to watch, really. And it's hard seeing the likes of Ramsey and Bale, who've been so influential in the past, be so ineffective, really. Neither of them have looked fully fit, and playing 3 games in a week is a test for anyone's fitness. And they were, I guess, the early kickoff didn't help them either in the last match, because the heat and the humidity. But yeah, the midfield is looking a real weak point. So they're looking pretty flat. I think Joe Allen might be fit enough to come in and feature, but still, I think they're very gettable at the minute, Wales. And look, I don't want to say it's the end of a cycle, but they were quite fortunate to even get to the World Cup. Hennessy was putting in an absolutely incredible performance in the playoffs. Bale, scoring worldies as well. So, can't be the biggest surprise that they are struggling to get out of a tricky group, in fairness. So, yeah, it's not an easy betting heat. These I would be England based. I'm going to back them to win and under 3.5 goals at 2.16, but it wouldn't be my strongest play, just because. If England score early, I think this game is a bit of a damp squib. Hence why I've gone with the unders.
Yeah, so England under 3.5 goals at 2.16, or you can go with Adrian's maybe alternative 2.32 on England and both teams to score, or England to win to nil. Both markets, it's the same price, but they're both on matchbook.com. We'll move on to the Wednesday afternoon games. It's 3:00, and we'll take a look at the betting as we have it on matchbook.com for Australia versus Denmark. Australia can be backed 7.2, which surprised me this morning when I looked at the prices. Denmark 1.57. The draws available at 4.4. Both teams to score no's available at 1.81. The Asian handicap line sees Australia get a goal head start at 2.02, and the total is 2.5 goals, slightly shaded towards the under. Adrian, over to you. I did mention that Australia did look a tad big, but you do see Denmark just about getting the job done here.
I do, yeah. I mean, well done to Australia. I didn't think they'd get a win under their belts in this group. It did take us by surprise, but it was like a Sunday pub level, wasn't it? It wasn't a great game. It wasn't a great standard. And I just think that we saw the difference with the Australia v France, the difference in quality. And, even though Denmark aren't as good as France, I think there is a bit of a gap there. And there's a massive motivation, isn't there, for Denmark to get the win. I think that, everything rests on this. And I'm confident that they'll have enough. They were pretty competitive, I thought, in the French game. They didn't maybe get their tactics right. They certainly didn't handle the French wide players very well in the game. But in that second half, they could have scored more than the one they got. They troubled them. So yeah, I think that I saw signs that they're starting to find themselves a little bit, Denmark, in that France game. Australia, I think, maybe have had their moment now. They've got their win, shot win, scrappy game that was sort of none of us will really remember moving forwards. And I still think that's about it for them. I don't think they're a top team at all, and I'd be surprised if they can handle a highly motivated Denmark. So I think that they could win this one quite comfortably. I've gone super safe here, actually. Denmark and under 4.5 goals. Could have gone skinnier, but it's still 1.83. So yeah, it gets a lot of score lines on our side with Denmark winning.
Yeah, and Miguel, I guess Adrian made a good point that perhaps the quality difference in that France-Denmark game versus the Australia game will ultimately tell here.
Yeah, and I would agree with Adrian as well. I thought they were starting to find their feet I thought they were really good for long periods of that French game in a way they didn't against Tunisia. Because I mean, we know what Denmark are about in that sense. And you would have expected them to kick on, and perhaps that first game was just a classic case of what's happened a lot in this tournament, which is that it almost should have been. It should have started 5 days to a week later. And I was at the Australian game against the French. They were game, as we saw against Tunisia, but they're flawed. I mean, you only have to look at the kind of clubs so many of their players are at. And yeah, I do think they've had their moments. I think this will be one of those where they start well and it'll be full of energy, but ultimately Danish class will just see through. Hence, I'd go for a Denmark win and under 3.5, which is actually fairly healthy odds.
2.22, and Mark, you're in agreement on that bet. And I guess looking back at the France-Denmark game, from memory, Denmark had those two massive chances at 1-1, and had they scored, we'd be looking at a completely different perspective on this Danish team.
Yeah, perhaps. I still think that there was a massive class difference when you see Kylian Mbappe in the form he is. Quite frightening, really. So I think any defence would have had issues containing him. But yeah, big up the Socceroos, really. A massive result for them against Tunisia, and I've got the in-laws down under sort of messaging me about it. Of course, they weren't watching, but they see it on the news, and I think they're as surprised as any of us, for they managed to bag 3 points. But to score in both matches as well, and they've looked a lot more organised and effective than I possibly anticipated. However, saying all that, they scored 2 goals. They've only managed 3 shots from inside the penalty area across their first 2 games, and they've conceded 28. So, yeah, I guess they're pretty fortunate to have 3 points on the board. And just, touching on what Miguel said about the clubs these players are playing at, the back 4 that played against Tunisia play their club football at Dundee United, Hearts, Stoke and Brescia. This is a big step up in class. You have to feel that Australia right now are playing to their absolute limit. I can't imagine they can kind of reach a next level, if you like. And that's not being disrespectful to them whatsoever. It's just case in point, really. And Denmark, you have to feel, are getting there. They're improving game by game. My issue right now with Denmark is just perhaps in open play they've not been as creative as I probably anticipated. About 2/3 of their total XG has come from set piece situations, which is good. They're very effective from those dead balls, but I want to see a little bit more from them in open play. So yeah, I mean, this is do or die for Denmark, isn't it, really? I expect them to get the job done. I put up Denmark to win under 3.5 goals at around about, 2.22, but I'd probably actually push it further just because you can. Follow Adrian in actually on Denmark and under 4.5 goals. If you can get 5 to 6, that's a reasonable price.
Yeah, it's slightly over the 5 to 6 mark, 1.83. Yeah, so looks a decent price. Broad agreement with the guys, Denmark, and either under 3.5 or 4.5 goals, depending which way you want to go as a better for you listeners. So we'll move on to the other game in the group. This is Tunisia versus France, and take a look at the betting as we currently have it at matchbook.com. Tunisia can be back to 7.6, France available at 1.57, and the draw is 4.2. Both teams to score no is 1.81, and that's favoured in that market. The Asian handicap line sees Tunisia get a 1-goal head start at just under evens, 1.99, and the goal line here is 2.5. So Mark, you're sitting this one out. Over to you, Miguel, on this one, and you're liking France to win a game quite comfortably. So you pair them with over 2.5 at 2.66.
Yeah, I was going to say very impressive France so far. I wouldn't maybe go that far because I think there's still a few questions over whether that midfield will work together. I think the Danes really got at them in a way you wouldn't have expected with the previous French side of 2018 and the hints that kind of there's still a few structural problems for Deschamps to solve there. But it's been offset because I think they're a much more expressive France than 2018 with Mbappe on another level. And just from that, I mean, you can see this being another game where they get one and they kind of express themselves again in a way they did against Australia. But I do think actually on that we might see a very different France in this group stage as in the knockout stages.
Yeah, and Adrian, on France, they're tough to sort of, like, the Mbappe is so exciting, and to be honest with you, he's scoring all these different kind of goals. It's whether they can click, as Miguel touched on, that midfield in particular. I think quarterfinal, semi-final stage will be very fascinating how they get on.
For sure, yeah. No, I think that is the issue, and also at centre half, they're making changes, aren't they? Be interesting to see what they do here. Have they got a settled partnership, or is Deschamps still sort of experimenting? We'll maybe get a steer on that here. I mean, they're through. They're pretty much guaranteed top spot, aren't they, France? So there's every chance that they could rest and rotate heavily. So that's something to consider. You might see one or two of the big guns on the bench, potentially. They've averaged 22 shots a game. It's not just Mbappe that's impressed. I think that Griezmann and Dembele have been great as well. Obviously, Giroud in that first match was outstanding. So when your front four are clicking like this and you've got a Tunisia side that they need a win, it's win or bust, and it's probably going to be bust anyway for them, then yeah, they could have a bit of fun here, and it should be quite a spicy game. Obviously, there's some cultural links there between France and Tunisia, so I think the atmosphere will be decent. But yeah, freshened up French 11, knowing that they're safely through, I think they could cut loose and have a little bit of fun, particularly in the second half. So I'm just going to go over 2.5 as it happens, even though I think France will win. But because they don't have to win, that worries me a little bit. You know, could it be a 2-all? Could it be, you know, something like that? So you can get odds against on just over 2.5 goals, full stop, 2.08. So that's where I'm going to go. But chances are Miguel's pick will come in with France winning too.
Yeah, so wherever we want to play it, over 2.5, 2.08, and Miguel's boost to 2.66 if you throw in the French win. Mark set out that game, so Mark, we'll go to you first in the next game. We'll take a look at the betting as we have it on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. It's the Monday 7 o'clock kickoff, Poland versus Argentina. Poland can be backed at 8.6, Argentina 1.51. The draw is available at 4.4. Both teams score no, 1.69 favoured in that market, and the Asian handicap line sees Poland get a goal head start at 2.12, and the total is 2.25. So, yeah, Mark, with Argentina, where are you at so far? Because 60 minutes gone in that Mexico game, it took that genius goal from Messi to make the difference. Pre-tournament to now, are you the same, given that perhaps fluke result against Saudi Arabia, or do you have a few question marks over this Argentina team?
I have question marks for sure. They're a weird one, aren't they? Because I think if you're being results-led, you've got very different views. But if you're process-led, like I try to be, I thought they played well against Saudi Arabia and they should have won that game comfortably. So I was quite surprised then when I saw Lionel Scaloni make 5 changes against Mexico. He obviously felt there was much more wrong with that performance and result than I certainly did. And that's a couple of alarm bells, as did the performance against Mexico for an hour until, you know, Messi's laser beam left foot does that. And they were rotten in the first half. And I didn't think they were a huge amount better in the second half against Mexico, who defended pretty well. And Argentina looked out of ideas by giving it to Messi, really. So across the whole 90 minutes against Mexico, they had 6 touches in the Mexican penalty area. They had 25 against Saudi Arabia in the first game, which kind of goes to show. But because they win the second game, you assume, you know, they were the better team and they were much sort of deserving for it. And I guess another kind of slight concern is just the way in which they've been building up these matches now. I know it was pretty much do or die against Mexico, but the celebrations afterwards and the pressure they put on themselves to win that game. You know, I've loved a lot of what Scaloni's done with this side, but there's a couple of alarm bells there. If they're building these matches up into such, you know, emotional, pressurized fixtures, that's going to take its toll. You know, in a major tournament, we're only at game 2. This is game 3. And also, I guess we were sort of warned about it pre-tournament, but the loss of Lo Celso as the link man between the midfield and the attack just looks really glaring at the minute. There is no link right now, and they need to sort that too. So, a couple of concerns, but you know, they're playing Poland here, and they've just been a bit meh so far, really. You know, they missed that penalty against Mexico, bounced back by beating the Saudis, and not really convinced in doing so either. The Saudis controlled that game, dominated possession and the shot counts. They're the more positive. Again, playing a successful line against Poland as well, who just looked bland, really. But yeah, I mean, they get to concede a goal, which looks good. But they've conceded 1.66 non-penalty expected goals and 16 shots from inside the penalty area against fairly middling opponents, really. So I suspect they'll come a cropper, and I'll back Argentina to win this game alongside under 3.5 goals. I can't imagine it's going to be pretty. I don't expect a blowout. It's odds against 2.06, but yeah, I think I've got question marks about both, but probably more so on Poland rather than Argentina because we know that they've got the individual quality.
No, I've sat through the 2 Poland games, 90 minutes both ends. It's not good, to be honest with you. Miguel, we have a comment here saying your pick, Argentina won't be winning the World Cup this year. Your thoughts on that?
Certainly, my momentum behind Argentina has waned. I've been to both of their games. I'm going to the Poland game as well. But I mean, the one thing I would say in this, and this is especially the case with Argentina, because we've discussed this, but more so than, to be honest, almost any other nation in world football, let alone this World Cup, it feels like they're most influenced by the immediate psychological reaction or psychological tone of a game than any other team. So the lows are really low and the highs are really high. Mark touched on it there, where the response to from talking to people around the Argentinian camp, the response to the Saudi Arabia game is that it was like an emotional bomb in the dressing room, and then it's a complete opposite after one win against a bad Mexico, and it was described as an explosion of joy. And as Ken Early wrote in his column this morning, this is basically, you've only won game 2 of the World Cup to have a chance of playing game 4, and yet we're going to these extremes. But it does have an effect, and also even Messi, by scoring that goal and the nature of it, it brings out more in him as well. Especially he's taken on such a role as kind of the emotional leader of this team as well as a football leader. So I think for this game, and given how pretty mediocre Poland are, and not the most solid defensively, I would expect Argentina to win and win it tightly. I can easily see it being kind of 1-0 going into 70 minutes and then being a very nervy 20 that could bring a bit of chaos. But there's just been that kind of angst to Argentina games but they should do enough here.
Yeah, Adrian, I heard it described as bedlam, those celebrations after Mexico lasting up to an hour. And I'm a big celebrate the wins 100%, but they're really pushing it a small bit, I think, maybe.
A little bit. Yeah. They don't look like world champions at the moment, that is for sure. But they are a team that could build, and they'll be looking to build on that momentum, won't they? And even though I agree with the guys and that it's a red flag to a point, because the highs being too high and the lows being too low. I also think that Argentines in general, they feed off things like this. They feed off the noise and the pressure and the expectation, and it could become a grower for them throughout the tournament. That's mentally exhausting, but I just feel that Messi and co, that's what they want. So we'll see. I think they'll have enough to see off Poland. They've got 3 really good players, haven't they? Poland in Szczesny, Zielinski and Lewandowski. But that aside, they're bang average. Really are. So, they should win one, but it won't be a thriller. Same pick as the other 2 guys.
Yeah, Argentina under 3.5 goals. And we touched on Poland. The way they play, it could be a nervy last game for Argentina to see can they qualify for the last round. And we'll go on to the other game in that group, which could have a bearing as well. Saudi Arabia versus Mexico, and take a look at the betting as we have it at matchbook.com. You can back Saudi Arabia at 5.1, Mexico 1.72, the draw available at 4.4. Both teams to score, yes is 1.87, no is 2.12. Saudi Arabia are getting a 3/4 of a goal head start at 2.06, and the total is 2 3/4. Mark, we'll go to you. There's a bit of support for Saudi Arabia in the comments on the Asian handicap line, and you're in full agreement with them.
Yeah, well done, whoever that is. I think we. We were told, and we expected, all my research I did suggested that Saudi Arabia were going to be a much better team than we saw 4 years ago. And I guess that's not too hard, really, when you've got Hervé Renard running things behind the scenes, renowned in African football circles for his success on the international stage. And he's driven standards. He's built a strong sort of footballing culture, as well as a belief in organisation and just personal pride in that squad. And there's a big connection between him and his players. And I think we saw that during the halftime team talk against Argentina. I didn't expect them to be this good, though. And, they didn't really deserve to beat Argentina. But you have to sort of give them credit for the way in which they went about their business, the game plan that they stuck to and pulled off, really. Really sort of caught the imagination, really. So they do look like a very well-coached team. Obviously have a bit of home advantage, you could say, with the climatic conditions, neighbouring host nation, plenty of supporters on side as well. And I thought they were unfortunate against Poland as well. I said it before, they had the majority of the play, of the possession, but obviously kind of gift wrapped one of the goals to Poland. But I think Mexico are going to have it difficult to try and break this team down and try and open them up, really. So really quite happy to oppose Mexico, who are shorter in the market than Poland were against the Saudis. And I've just seen very little to excite me so far from El Tri. They're short on creativity, short on clinical edge in the final third, and they literally created nothing against Argentina. We're playing for a point, I know, for the most of that match, but even still, they put themselves in a bit of a hole now. They're going to have to go chasing, which could play into the Saudis' hands, really. So I thought Saudi Arabia +1 at 175 was decent. Mexico need to win by 2 goals or more to see this bet lose. I know a lot of these matches have been taking place in their own sort of region, CONCACAF, but went through the numbers. The only teams Mexico have beaten by a margin of 2 goals or more in competitive action over the last 3 years are Suriname, El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. And in fact, they've only scored more than twice in 4 of the last 27 internationals, all against those same 4 teams, Honduras, Suriname, and Guatemala. They managed only 17 goals in the 3rd round of qualifying for CONCACAF. That's the same tally as Panama. The top goal scorer was Raul Jimenez with 3 goals, and all 3 of those came from the penalty spot as well. So, yeah, everything we've seen in the first 2 games kind of correlates with what Mexico have been doing regionally now for a good while. Pretty solid and firm defensively, but just offering very little going forward. And I think tactically it might suit the Saudis this match too. So I don't see them getting blown away.
Yeah, Adrian, sometimes Mark makes a case that you just have to nod in agreement.
Yeah, look, I had some of those stats. So yeah, damn it, that was a waste. That was a waste of time. But it's absolutely right. I looked at this and I saw those numbers of Mexico's. How often have they scored 2 goals? Because that's what they need to do here for this bet to lose. It's not very often, and it's not against decent teams. So for me, this is quite a strong play. I know that Saudi Arabia lost 2-0 to Poland, but I think that was a slightly unfair reflection. They had more shots than Poland, and I thought I quite like the way they go about their work, really. And I think they're more than capable of making this a match that'll be roared on. I mean, this would be a great atmosphere on it because there's a lot of Mexicans there. There's so many Saudi fans. So I think it could be a really tasty game. And I just don't think that Hervé Renard and his team have come this far to put in a no-show. I think they're going to come here and really fight and scrap to make history and to get themselves into the next round. They believe, and I think they've got a right to believe because this Mexico team is not bad between both boxes, but they can't score. If you can't score, what hope have you got? So, yeah, Saudi +1. Yeah, I feel quite confident in that.
Yeah, Mark touched on, Miguel, the lack of goals, which is probably the angle you're coming at this at under 2.5, which is a big price, 2.16.
Yeah, again, at that game on Saturday night, or was Saturday? I've lost track at this point. It's basically day 6 or day 7 of the World Cup.
Yeah.
And I was just really struck by how one-dimensional Mexico were. They've basically got some defensive organization. I mean, this has been a defensive organization, and that's it. It's very Tata Martino, the former Argentine manager, who took them to the 2015 Copa America. But again, there was that discussion even at the time. He took them to the final, that it was too rigid a team for the attacking quality they've got. Now they've got barely any attacking quality, and we're seeing it in their games. And it's why, I think in this, it's almost... I was actually surprised at the generosity of this, given it's Mexico involved. Given Saudi Arabia's, you'd have to still say, lack of quality. The under 2.5 is over 2. So for me, I think this would be 0-0, 1-0 either side. But it's almost a banker for me.
Yeah, there's some few confident shouts there. Under 2.5, 2.16, Saudi Arabia plus a goal on the Asian handicap line, 1.76. There'll be a full recap of all this up on Monday afternoon, if it is Monday today. Matchbook Insights, the place to get that. So the long shot sections, we've hit a couple of crossbar. I thought we had it up with France Denmark mark at 1-1. You're going for a slightly different take on this, and another crossbar hit was the Canada halftime, Croatia full time. We were on the right track there for sure. So tell us a little bit about this one. You like this? A draw halftime, Iran full time, 10.0.
Yeah, just tactically, I think I know that we've seen a lot of first half draws in the World Cup so far, and I know Miguel thinks differently, but I think this could be, or at least start to be, quite tight and cagey. I think it plays into Iran's hands, but they just need to play for a point. I think they'll be doing their best to turn it into a real scrap, at least for the first 45 minutes. And I think the US will have to work overtime to try and penetrate them. So obviously, as the match wears on and the game stays level for as long as it possibly can do, desperation will start to kick in, and US will have to sort of chuck the kitchen sink at things. And that will open the game up and present opportunities for Iranian side who have shown more than enough quality in forward areas to trouble both England and Wales on the counter-attack. So, you'd rather take the Iranian front line than the American one either. So, I just think there's an opportunity here for an upset, really. The US are going to have to push for things. And if they can get to half-time at level pegging, I think there are going to be opportunities for Iran to go and win the game. So, draw Iran, halftime, full time. I thought 9-1, 10.0 is worth a little bit of beer money at least.
Yeah, definitely one for those just wanting an interest bet on the game, perhaps. Miguel, you tried your best to hide this during the Netherlands game, but you failed miserably. But you do like 3-0 Netherlands, 8.4.
Yeah, basically. Again, Netherlands, they have control. They've got too much quality. But under Van Gaal, I don't think it'll be there. They're not quite one of those teams that, or they're very rarely under Van Gaal, a team that will just keep going. He likes to maintain passing angles. So 3-0 seems kind of generous. It'll be the biggest win of the group stage over Qatar, reflecting Netherlands' superior quality, but also reflecting what they are as a team. I think there's a lot of logic behind this one, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, 8.4, and particularly the hour before kickoff, there's a lot of liquidity in those markets out now already, but they really will get liquid. So you could get an even bigger price, perhaps. Adrian, Ecuador 1, Senegal 0, a classic 8.0. That's what you're
I feel that it's an evenly matched, not an evenly matched game, but it's obviously a very competitive match. It's the defining game of the group, and Ecuador know what they've got to do. They only need the draw. But I feel that they are the superior side of the two. I'm confident that they can get the job done here. We know how good they are at the back. Clean sheets for fun, stretching back throughout this calendar year. Obviously, they conceded one against the Netherlands and then shut them out completely. 2 shots they gave up to Holland in that game. Qatar didn't have a sniff of scoring in the first game either. Just that one clear opportunity. So, yeah, I think they're capable of. I think they're a stronger team than Senegal. I think they're tactically more robust, and they'll get the job done in what I think will be quite a cagey game. So, yeah, 1-0. It's just like you say, just worth a little poke at that one.
Yeah, before we get to best bets, we have a comment in here saying, great show, Mark, with draw halftime, you're on full-time, Mark. You're one of the few people that are getting compliments on a tip before it's even happened. So there you go. That's rare to see. Mark, tell us your best bets. If you don't have a Matchbook account, enter the bonus code podcast, for up to £50 in cash and double the odds on these best bets. And Mark, Netherlands -1 3/4.
Yeah, I've already sort of detailed why I think Netherlands will win this match comfortably. Miguel has too, and if Senegal and Ecuador can beat this Qatari team by at least 2 goals, there's no reason why the Dutch can't. We haven't seen the best of them at all in the first 2 games. Hoping Memphis Depay makes his return and starts this match, and if he does, I suspect the Dutch will rack up a couple of goals and win this game quite comfortably. So we need them to win by at least 2 goals to bank at least a half stakes profit, hopefully some more. But yeah, I think Netherlands win this game quite comfortably. So yeah, Dutch -1 3/4, around about 178.
Yeah, Adrian, for you, Denmark and under 4.5 goals is the best bet.
Yeah. I think Australia have had their moment. A good win against Tunisia, but they are limited. They've got their squad shouldn't really have got 3 points after 2 games, but they are where they are, and well done to them. But I just can't see that run continuing. Denmark are up against it. They're staring at the abyss, but I see signs there that they're coming together. They could easily have scored 2 or 3 goals against France. And if that's the case, then I think they can score 2 or 3 goals against a team as limited as Australia. So yeah, with the pressure on, I think Denmark will use their tournament experience wisely to get that job done. So yeah, Denmark and under 4.5 goals, 1.83 gets a lot of Denmark scorelines on our side.
Yeah, Miguel, very briefly, Iran, USA, both teams to score. You're expecting goals here.
Yeah, as I said, I think this is going to be one of them, just sparks straight away. Whoever gets the first goal, no matter who it is, it's going to create a response. And I think this is going to be a real back and forth, especially with the way USA play as well.
Okay, yeah, fascinating how that game plays out for sure. Insights.matchbook.com, get the guys' full recap of all these bets. That'll be available from Monday afternoon. If you are enjoying the content, do give us a like, get involved with a comment on your best bet. But for now, Adrian, Mark, Miguel, and myself will be back Wednesday to preview the other half of the final group games. But for now, take care. We'll chat to you Wednesday and enjoy the football. Bye-bye.